G'day, my name's Dev and this is the magnificent Finniss River country, southwest of Darwin, in the top end of Australia's Northern Territory. Its beautiful floodplains and eucalyptus forests include the mystic hills and waterfalls of Litchfield National Park, but conceal the complex human history of the land. So for this episode I'll interview my good friend Calvin Deveraux, who is a Ruck Muck Muck Maranungu man and a traditional owner of the Finniss River. He is also an Aboriginal activist and a stockman. Aboriginal people have been living in this area for about 60,000 years. That's approximately 2,400 generations of individual people living traditionally with the bush, experiencing the full kaleidoscope of the human condition in worlds saturated by the dreaming. Australia's colonial expansion reached it in the 1860s with the usual ambitious sequence of long-range exploration and then settlement through big pastoral leases and small mining operations. In 1865, Fred Litchfield explored this region for the South Australian government. He travelled up the Finniss River and named it after his leader, Colonel Boyle Travers Finniss. Its upper reaches were later surveyed by George Goyder in 1869. Soon after the South Australians finally established a foothold in the Northern Territory, they started building the overland telegraph line to link themselves and the other colonies almost instantly with the rest of the expanding Western world. This drew Aboriginal people from this region away to the fringes of the telegraph line's construction camps, where amazing otherworldly things like alcohol, tobacco and opium could be sought and traded with labour or sex. Conversely, other Aboriginal people from other areas moved into this region to work with the Chinese miners amongst the rocks, or to deckhand with the Malay sampans along the coast, or to muster and draft the cattle with the white stockmen on the plains. Consequently, the Aboriginal social geography of this region was deeply wounded by colonisation, and in the modern era, traditional ownership is painfully controversial, so I will not dwell upon it. But Aboriginal culture and knowledge remain strong in this region, and Calvin and members of his family live it to this day. Thankfully, we're able to do this interview on their spectacular country.
Jump on him! Bring him out here.
Calvin, thank you so much for doing this interview on your country.
No, thank you, Deb.
My
More
pleasure.
than welcome.
My pleasure, bro. Calvin, could you please tell us about the Finniss River and what it means to you?
The Finnish River means a lot to my mob. It's the lifeblood of our country. Water is our life. Obviously, humankind is dependent on water to live, and so the Finnish River runs all the way back from Bachelor down to the coast. I've been fortunate enough to live my entire existence upon all reaches of the Finniss and enjoyed the resources of it, as well as, with my family and my people, and it means a lot to us.
It's a beautiful country. Calv, could you tell us about your family's history and their connection to it?
Well, our family's been here a long time. Before colonisation, the Muck Muck Maranungu enjoyed free range from the hill country outside of Bachelor to the east and all the way to the coast in the mouth of the Finniss River in the west, always following the river. And it's always been an integral part of who we are, where we're from. And as the Muck Muck people, the white-breasted seagull, the white eagle clan, and the most northern clan group of the Daly River families, it means a lot to us to be a part of it and to represent our land still today in these modern times, to conduct our ceremonies and to be able to create business that's sustainable and we can integrate within our daily social life.
You talk a lot about your grandmother.
Yeah, my grandmother, she was born in what is now Litchfield National Park um, back in the early 1900s, and at a place not far from what they now call Walker's Creek. And so she was born there. Our family's been associated, you know, and grew up here in the area where her fathers and grandfathers before her were born. And with the incoming of colonisation, landowners and pastoralists, you know, what they could refer to as pioneers today, came in, and one of them was a pioneering family of sergeants. They're of pioneering renown as one of the first families of pioneers into the district, and just with her brothers and family working in aspects of pastoral life over those ensuing years, she had the opportunity to actually meet my grandfather, and here we are today, you know. So, and we've enjoyed the family history with Grandpa. He went to World War II in the interim years, but the family's always been here on the Finniss area, and so the Finniss River really, for the pioneering family that moved here from Canada all those years ago, to meeting the indigenous mob and creating a new family and a new mob living here today, you know.
Can you tell us a bit cultural way, like the importance of the Finniss River and how it was formed in the Dreaming to be what it is?
Well, in the Dreaming, you know, Australia's got the rainbow snake. Well, yeah, the rainbow snake features in our ceremony, and there is ceremony all from this where Larrakia mob come down from Darwin, their northern neighbours, and the serpent come from the east, sunrise mob to the sunset, and that rainbow serpent and the Dreaming is associated with our ceremonies, and we still observe those ceremonies today. In regards to young people, young girls, young boys going through their relevant ceremonies for country with their grandmothers and great aunts and grandmothers, and so we still maintain the cultural side of things, even though it's a modern climate, and we run businesses on the land. And a lot of our lands, Litchfield National Park, where our ceremony places are, we still conduct ceremonies there. We just try and be private about it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and still sharing. Calvin, can you please tell us about Twin Hill Station, the property you and your family help run?
Twin Hill Station was built in 1996. There was a lot of consternation throughout the 80s, land rights. There was a contest situation where Makmak Maranungu were pitted against adversaries, and in 1996 we were handed a decision where we proved through evidence of traditional ownership against anti-government and others, and we got established our primary rights under the Aboriginal Land Right Act, Northern Territory 1976. And from that point forward, the family had always aspired from the previous generation, Aboriginal generation before this one, the old people wanted to have their own cattle station enterprise, because they always knew it was cattle country, and poor old buggers didn't live to see it. We built it in '96, and it's now 2022, and it's quite successful in itself. Thanks to the traditional owners, and it's traditional owner run, managed, operated, and we haven't looked back. It's given us a platform to maintain the country against the invasive weeds.
Calv, just on that, can you tell us in some ways what the country was like when you first started operating it with the mimosa and some of the invasive species that were running amok through this land?
So, back in the day, and I suppose back when I was a child, there wasn't a lot of invasive weeds around. It was more or less maybe the time it was starting to come in. And the feral animals, pigs, buffalo, horses, lent a lot of assistance to those weeds establishing themselves across the Darwin hinterland, which we're a part of at the extremes. And by the time the land claims had finished under ALRA and we had land rights, the place was actually referred to as a basket case from the Northern Territory government. And they didn't want to assist us at the time, so the family set out at this little place we call Digony.
Yes, this place right here.
Yep, and so we started doing trial and error runs as traditional owners to see how we could manage it, or yeah, and so from that we actually built ourselves up into international renown, into mimosa wetland management regimes. You know, integrating it with Western methodology and our seasonal and cultural knowledge of the land.
So both ways,
Yeah,
traditional
both ways,
knowledge
yep.
and scientific deduction. Interesting, Calv. Calv, can you talk us a bit about issues with fishermen coming up the Finniss River?
Yeah, so back in the day we had no rights in the river. We lived at the mouth of the Finniss, although when I say when we lived at the mouth of the Finniss, there wasn't Dundee or a lot of boat ramps in the local area, and it was only a two-wheel track out to our camp at the time. Grandpa made the road to Dundee, what they call Dundee today. And so we never had much drama until, when I talk about drama, I talk about traffic with fishermen, competitive probably about late 90s, 2000. And so it started becoming an issue. Subsequently, the Blue Mud Bay High Court decision come down. We were awarded rights to our country and our waters, intertidal air waters again. And the Makmak Maranogo thought that we might, for the first time ever, try and manage, in a sustainable manner, the traffic, the erosion, and basically what a lot of Territorians, they call themselves old Territorians, they don't see effects, but when you've lived as much as your life, and I'm only young, but I've seen the effects and the changes at the mouth of the Finniss to here. No mind about the changes up to the top of the intertidal zone, where the river's widening, the erosion's happening, the banks are collapsing. And so there's a problem, and so we thought we'd close the river for better management and for better...
For the health of the country.
Health of the country. Well, not only health of the country, but to educate the public that, look, you just can't go up the rivers, and your boats are getting bigger, everyone's on more money, or for whatever reason. It's better to educate about the resource that we have instead of expediting the damage.
Yes.
Of, they talk about climate change. We don't have to help to expedite it if it is indeed happening.
Damn straight, Calv. All you can do is mitigate it and try to heal it. So, Calv, could you maybe finish up by telling us what you think the future of this country is, and if you think it's bright, if you think things are getting better?
Things are getting better. I grew up in a tumultuous time of land claims and well, you didn't have much support back then. You didn't have you had a Centrelink, you had access issues, remote issues, when around the time I was growing up. Today I grow my kids up knowing full well that I can provide for them, the land can provide with them. I've been in hard times where I've brought the kids back here, and it's been no issue growing the kids up here with basically no income. But in saying that, with the businesses that Makmak Maranogo are doing today on land and within the guidelines of our resource manage, our guidelines, not anti-governments, not environmental centres, Makmak, because we have the knowledge.
You know the land.
We know the land, we know how to, what we're going to do, how to operate it. If the cattle are impacting it too much, we destock. If we think erosion's happening, let's do something about it. Let's investigate options of levees, banks. We're seeing a lot of saltwater intrusion, climate change, diebacks in swamps, etc. We'd rather work with the community to better the resources for the community.
Straight up.
Outside of ourselves, because basically this Finnish catchment will feed that saltwater out the front, Fog Bay.
Yes.
It always has. Kill this, you won't have that.
Yeah.
Recreationals, amateurs, fishermen, commercials, blackfellas, aboriginals, whatever. Do that. Learn with us. Learn from our history.
Calvin, thank you so much for doing this interview with us, brother.
No worries, Dev. Anytime, mate.